Welcome back to the channel where we break down how everyday thinking patterns shape your financial life over time. Today, we're tackling a huge question. Why don't schools teach us how money actually works? And why does this leave so many people, even those who were straight A students, feeling lost and confused about their finances later in life? Now, this isn't about blaming schools or teachers. It's about understanding the system itself and how it was built, and what it was originally designed to do. Most modern public education systems were created during the Industrial Revolution. The primary goal wasn't to create financially independent individuals. The goal was consistency. Schools were designed to be factories for people, preparing large groups to function predictably inside existing systems. Think about it: show up on time, follow instructions, complete your assigned tasks, and work within a rigid structure. Those skills are definitely useful, but they are not the same skills that money rewards. The financial world doesn't reward simple obedience or following rules in the same way a classroom does. Instead, it rewards effective decision-making, timing, managing risk, and long-term strategic thinking. These are messy, subjective skills. They're hard to standardize and even harder to grade on a test. Schools are built around subjects that have clear, definitive answers. Math problems have one correct solution. History tests have specific dates and facts. Science experiments have predictable outcomes. But money is rarely like that. Most financial decisions are about trade-offs, managing uncertainty, and dealing with results that might not show up for years or even decades. That ambiguity makes money a very difficult subject to teach in a traditional classroom setting. Another major reason is that finance is deeply personal and situational. What works for one person could be a disaster for another. The right financial move depends entirely on your income, your location, your family responsibilities, your tolerance for risk, and the timing of your life. There is no single correct path. To teach money honestly, you have to teach context, judgment, and adaptability, all things that are incredibly difficult to put on a report card. Then there's the training gap. Most teachers were never taught personal finance themselves. They are experts in their specific subjects: math, literature, history, not in investing, tax law, debt management, or financial planning. It's completely unrealistic to expect them to teach money effectively without any dedicated training or support. Even when schools do manage to offer a financial literacy class, it's often very limited. Students might learn how to balance a checkbook or calculate simple interest, but they rarely learn about the behavioral side of money, how it actually functions and behaves in the real world over long periods. They learn the formulas, but they don't learn the meaning behind them. This creates a strange situation where people can do the math, but have no idea how to apply it to their own lives. Time and incentives also play a huge role. Schools are under constant pressure to improve their standardized test scores in core subjects, like math and reading. Subjects that aren't on the test naturally get less attention and fewer resources. When school budgets get tight, practical life skills are almost always the first things to be cut. And money education usually falls right into that category. And let's not forget the issue of neutrality. Teaching money means teaching values, whether schools want to admit it or not. Every decision about debt, spending, investing, and risk involves a judgment call. Schools try to remain neutral to avoid conflicts with parents and communities who might have very different ideas about what's financially right or wrong. It's much safer for a school to teach abstract concepts like algebra than to dive into real-world financial choices that could be seen as controversial. The end result of all this is that millions of people graduate knowing how to solve complex equations, but not how to read a simple loan agreement. They understand percentages, but not the devastating power of compound interest. When it's working against them, they know how to work hard, but they don't understand the systems that determine how that work is rewarded over time. This massive disconnect leads to a lot of frustration later in life. People feel like they did everything they were supposed to do. They went to school, they followed the rules, they got a job and worked hard. But financially, they feel like they're constantly falling behind. This gap doesn't create clarity, it creates shame and confusion. And without a solid understanding of how financial systems actually work, people tend to turn that frustration inward and blame themselves. Another critical factor is that school trains us to optimize for short-term rewards. We study for a test, we get a grade. We turn in a paper, we get immediate feedback. The entire system is built on quick feedback loops. But money operates on a much longer timeline. Investments can take years to mature. Valuable skills compound slowly. Most successful businesses lose money long before they ever turn a profit. School conditions us to expect fast results, but the financial world rarely provides them. This mismatch in expectations causes people to give up early. They try something new, don't see an immediate payoff, and assume it's not working. In reality, they were just applying a school-based mindset to a completely different system. Schools also tend to emphasize individual effort over systems thinking. The message is simple: you study, you pass. You don't study, you fail. Your outcome is a direct result of your personal effort, but money is far more complex. Financial outcomes depend on networks, timing, leverage, your environment, and consistent repetition. Effort absolutely matters, but effort alone is not enough to explain why some people build wealth and others don't without an understanding of systems. People get confused about why some professions pay more than others. They assume that harder work should always equal more money, and when it doesn't, they feel cheated instead of getting curious about the underlying system. And that's not their fault, they were literally trained to think that way. Finally, schools rarely teach us how to handle risk. In a school environment, mistakes are punished. A wrong answer on a test lowers your grade. Failure has immediate, negative consequences. But in the world of money, learning often requires a willingness to fail safely. You have to be able to take small, calculated risks, make mistakes, and adjust your strategy. If you've only ever been trained to avoid mistakes at all costs, you'll struggle in any environment that requires trial and error. This leads to being overly cautious or avoiding important financial decisions altogether. People stick with what feels safe, even if it severely limits their long-term growth. Because of all these factors, most of us end up learning about money the hard way, through costly mistakes, through getting into debt, through burnout, and through years of painful trial and error. But let me be clear, this does not mean the education system has failed you. It simply means it was never designed to teach you this in the first place. Understanding that simple fact is so important because it helps remove the shame. If you were never taught how money systems work, then struggling with them doesn't mean you're bad at money. It just means you were trained for a completely different game. The good news is that financial skills are learnable at any point in your life. Unlike academic subjects, they're built through awareness, repetition, and changing your behavior. Once you understand how money actually responds to time, your decisions, and your emotions, everything starts to make a lot more sense. And that's the real reason this channel exists. It's not here to replace school or to criticize it. It's here to explain the parts of life that weren't included in the curriculum and to show you why. Because once you can see the system clearly, you can stop blaming yourself for not knowing what you were never taught. And from that point on, making progress becomes a whole lot easier. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.